10 to 9, no Russian. Okay, let's see. So today we're going to start on Ayin Zion. Ayin Vav on base by the Mishnah. Brand new parak, right? Tomorrow, let's on the same time. Oh no, we're going to be a little late because there's a siyum tomorrow. So it's good. We'll start 10 minutes later. And then on Yom Tov, we'll learn an hour before Mincha. And on Shabbos, we won't learn. There's 3 day Yom Tov, we'll learn 2 out of the 3. And Sunday, we'll do regular time, which is 6. Okay. We need the accountant today. It starts Ataida Isaba Chamish Saim Yerushalmiyes. Carbon Taida, which we said was a Thanksgiving offering, was brought from together with the Thanksgiving offering. You also had to bring bread, 40 loaves of bread. So how much flour did they need? How much grain did they need? So it says Chamish Saim Yerushalmiyes. That's 5 Jerusalemite sa'in, which is the same thing, equivalent to Sheish Midbarius, which is 6 that were in the time of the Midbar, in the time of Moshe Rabbeinu. What happened? Why is this 6 and this 5? Happened is that at a certain point they decided to make the sa a little bit larger. Made the sa a little bit larger, so you only needed less. You needed less. You needed 5 instead of 6. Now, I get a little confused because I have some calculations in my head. Right? They don't always match up, and then I'm saying, "Oh, that's because that's the old one." Let's see, huh? So, shtei ephais. Whatever the case is, it's 2 ephais. It's 2 ephah. So whether it's 6 midbarius or 5 yerushalmius, which is the same thing, that's the equivalent to 2 ephah. It's easy to divide 6 into half. Each ephah would be 3. That would be easy, right? That would be 5. Each one is 2.5. That's like the whole numbers. So ephah shalish son, because the ephah is 3 son of the midbar. That's how it was in the desert. 3 plus 3 is 6. So that's 2 ephah, 6 son, which is Esher Misarin. Now, this is the easiest one to calculate because it's 10 tenths. Every ephah has 10 asiris ephah. It's 10 tenths. So if you have 2 ephah, then you have 20 tenths, right? So far, so good. 20 tenths. Fine, it's 2 ephah. 20 tenths. Yeah. Asar l'chametz, asar l'matzah. Even though there were 40 loaves and 30 of them were matzah, only 10 of them were chametz, but it was divided equally between chametz and matzah. Yeah. So the 30 were made out of 10, and the 10 were made out of 10. All right. I can imagine that, but the matzah is usually thinner. Okay. Not necessarily back in those days. They could have thicker matzah. It wasn't the same today. Huh? Yeah, no, they can even have bigger loaves. Asara l'chametz, the 10 that were chametz, that was isara and l'chala. Now remember that there were two ephahs here. Every ephah has 10 tenths, and isaran is a tenth. So if there's 10 loaves, that means each loaf would be 1/10. That's easy. Asara l'matzah, what about the 10 isaran, the tenths, the 10 tenths? For the matzah, Then a matzah shalish minim chalis. You had I'm sorry. You had shalish minim chalis rekikin and revucha. You had three types amongst the matzah. You had the chalis matzahs. You had the rekikin, which were also matzah. And you had the revucha. The challah was the dough that was mixed with oil. The rekikin was dough that was smeared with oil. The revucha was the dough that was boiled in water. Those are three types of unleavened matzah. So if that's the case, then I'll go back over this here. Then nimtzu, if you have 30 loaves that come from 10 isarin, nimtzu shleisha esreinim ushlish l'chol minumin. That means you need 3 1/3 for each of the types, because to get to the total of 10, you would need 3 1/3. V'shalish chalis li'isarin. And now remember there were 30 loaves. So each isarin, which were 3, there were 3 1/3 in each type. Each isarin was 3 loaves, right? The different types would be divided equally. Okay, now all of this was according to the desert calculations. Mida Yerushalmis. Now you go when it's made out of 5 sa, and it was what measurements did they use then? Then it was Hayu Shleishim Kav. All 40 loaves were made out of 30 kav. Yes, somehow 30 kav. You see, this is what confused me was I don't know my calculator. I understood always that a sa.
It's like converting to grams.
Yeah, a sa was 144 eggs. So we said that it would be 6 sa according to the desert calculations. So it'd be times 6. That'd be 864. Okay, easy. Now, according to the Yerushalmi calculation, there were only 5 sa, because they added this. If I figure this out, then I think I'll have the answer. They added. Only thing is, I don't know if a sa is the new sa or the old sa. The 144. If that's the new sa or the old sa, I think that would be the new sa. Yeah, the new Coke, which is not the old Coke. Remember that? Nusari. Oh, Nusari. Okay. Let's say this is the Nusa. So now the 5, if I take 864 and divide it by 5, that's not good. 1 second. It'd be 72.5. 172. 1 second, let me do that again. 864 divided by 5 would be 172.8. Okay, so it's 172. Now, okay, now this is my problem. Every sa is 6 kav. Okay, so a kav is 24 eggs. So 6 times 24 is 144. That's what I understood. So 6 kav, so 144. Let's take a look at this. Hayu b'midi Yerushalmis hayu shleishim kav. There were 30 kav. So 24 times 30 equals 720.
720.
720. 24 times 30. So that's not a number that I thought we had. We thought we had 834, right? Well, what's the 720? I don't know. So anyway, okay. Now this, the discrepancy has to do with I'm mixing in the old kav for the old measurement. Maybe how many eggs are in a kav? Do they say over there in the kav that we're discussing? I'll do it like this. Let's do, what was my number? 834? What was my number of the 144 times 6? Was 834?
144 times 6 is 870. Oh my God, 840 plus 32, 872.
No. It's like a 144 times 6 equals 864. 864. 864. Now, what I want to do is I want to divide that by 30. But 864 divided by, because that will help me.
28
And by 30 equals 28. 28.8. Okay, that's not going to do. Okay. No, that doesn't matter. That's just telling me if it varies what it is today. That's
Well,
not,
what is what? 28 and a half is it
okay. So whatever the case is, if I have 30 kav and I have to have chametz and matzah, half of them are going to be chametz, half of them are going to be matzah. Then chamisha chametz, chamisha matzah, right? 15 plus 50, 15, 15 would be. Now the interesting thing is that the chametz ones only had 10 loaves. So then chamisha chametz is kav mechza lechala. That would be a kav and a half per chala. Chamisha matzah. What do we do now? Now I have 30, and I have to get 30 chalas, 30 matzahs really, out of 15 kav. How much is each one going to be? And I have three types. Three types. The matzah shalish minim, chalas v'kikin ravucha, nimtza chameshes kav l'chol minamin. So which means that I had 5 kav for each type, and then I needed 10 per type. So shtei chalas l'kav. Every kav made 2 chalas. Yeah, that would give me 30 loaves.
Huh?
That would give me 30 loaves because it's 15 kav. 5 per type. Yeah. But how many eggs is a liquid kav? Oh, for a lug. How many eggs is a lug? 6. Right? It should be 24. 24. It doesn't add up to what we were saying the size. Anyway, I don't know. Okay, let's start the Gemara. That's how you make money. when you convert it, all of a sudden you have 864. We know we're supposed to have 720. Okay. Gemara says like this. I'll tell you the Isabah Chamisham Yushalmius. It came from 5 saw, Jerusalemite saw. Nani Mili. Gemara now asks, how do you know? That's not really what we're quoting. How do we know that an ephah is 3 saw each? Because in the desert, this needed to be made out of 2 ephah. The lachmi taida made 2 ephah, and each ephah was 3 saw. Be a total of 6 saw. How do we know that an ephah is a saw? So we quote these psukim from Tanakh. Quite difficult actually to translate. Amar Rav Chisda Amar Kra, because it says in the pasuk in Yecheskel, it says ha'ephah v'habas teichen echad. An ephah and a bas is a type of measurement, is the same size. Yelachem should be for you. Okay. Where it says Ma bas shalishon, not ephah shalishon. Okay, we figured it out. We know that a bas is 3 sa, so an ephah is also 3 sa. Where it says a bas kufa minal, how do you know how big a bas is? Right? It says ilim midiksiv laseses meiser chaymer habas. Maybe we know because it says to carry the meiser of a chaymer, which is habas. Now a chaymer would be 30 sa, and the meiser of a chaymer, the 10th, would be 3 sa. So now we know that the bas is okay. It says the Gemara says efanami aksiv asir sachaymer efa, but it says a 10th of a chaymer is an efa. So if we know how much a chaymer is, then we would know how much a bas is, and we would also know how much a ephah is. We didn't need the whole pasuk about bas because we know that a tenth of a chaymer would be an ephah as well. So just drop the bas and just go straight from chaymer to ephah. There's ela chaymer leyadana kama he. Chaymer leyadana kama. We don't know how big a chaymer is. We don't know how big a chaymer is, so we don't know how much a tenth of a chaymer is. So ela, okay. So hachanami leyadana kama. So if we don't know what a chaymer is for the bas, we don't know what a chaymer is for the ephah. Okay. Ella mehacha. Now that we need another source to tell me how big the ephah is. Does hachoik hashemen b'choik hashemen habas hashemen meiser habas menakor asoras habatim chaymer kiaseres habatim chaymer. Let's read this in the actual text. This pasuk is in Yechezkel Mem Hey Yidaled. It says like this: the law of the oil. The bas is the measure for the oil. The bas shall be a tenth of a kor, which is 10 bas. Right? The bas is a tenth of a kor, which is 10 bas. A chaymer for 10 bas are a chaymer. Okay, so a bas and a chaymer is the same thing. Okay. So what do we know? What do we get from this? Well, the only thing that got introduced here was the measurement of a kor. And a kor is 30 sa. So a kor is 30 sa. And a tenth of a kor is the same as a tenth of a kor is a bas. We know that a bas and a ephah is the same thing, and a kor is also a chaymer. So we know that a chaymer is 30 sa, a kor is 30 sa. A bas and an ephah, which are both a tenth of a chaymer and a tenth of a kor, are going to be 3 sa. So good, we figured out that an ephah is 3 sa.
What's the minimum?
A mincha was an isaran of an ephah. Would be if an ephah is 3 sa, it'd be about 86 eggs. 86.
How does that compare?
A bas is 3 sa. It's 864 eggs. Right?
No, because I'm hearing you keep on echoing in my mind, banging that bus, Kimincha Amach bus, but the numbers don't add up.
Oh, that's interesting.
Doesn't.
Interesting. Amar Shmuel.
ADH.
Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, "Ein meisifan al midas yisem mishdos, v'le meisifan al pes yisem mishdos, v'mishtak leishtak yisem mishdos." Okay, bunch of statements here about making coins and or measurements in the cities. That you can't just decide that you're going to make a new measurement that's going to be 1/6 more than the old measurement, and give it the same name. You can't do that. You can't do that to coins. You can't do that to measurements. Someone that makes a profit is not supposed to make a profit more than 1/6. Now the Gemara says, "My time. What's the reason for these statements that you just said?" If it's because you're going to say that when the measurement goes up, then the price is going to go up. So then you can't even do a 6. Why are you saying more than 1/6? You can't increase it even 1/6. Why? Yeah, inflation. So if you don't want to create inflation by because you have bigger measurements and now the price is going to go up. Why won't the price go up just proportionately to the measurement? That's the problem, that it won't be proportionate. Maybe they might change this price disproportionate to the amount that it was increased.
Maybe the same thing happens today. Like everything goes up, but salaries don't Don't go off the same point.
Yeah, and here it's talking about simply the market price. They say, the paper towels. They say now, 20 times more. But the price was like double the price. But it's now 20. It doesn't mean 20 times more. It's not double. 20 times more is. No, so anyway, they say, oh, you've increased it, and you may end up charging more. So the Gemara says, if that's the case, then why is the problem only a sixth? If you increase it, there's always gonna be an inflation if that's what we're worried about. The problem is that there's a prohibition that you're not allowed to charge more than a sixth. It says if you do charge more than a sixth, then the sale is invalid. It says the problem is is chayzer. When do we say that you're not allowed to charge more than a sixth? What does that mean? That the value of the item should not be 1/6 more than the market price. But if you're giving an actual amount and you're not measuring it correctly, then we don't say, "Oh, I didn't measure it, but it's still within the 1/6." Well, we don't say that. The measurements need to be 100% exact.
Right. Rambam says that. Selling someone produce, you're supposed to give them a little extra just to be safe.
Uh-huh.
You definitely don't have leeway to get more.
Right. No, but the concept of a sixth, that you have this leeway of a sixth until the sale is invalid, that's only on the price. That's not on the measurement. So if the measurement is off to the slightest, bittul mekach immediately.
Yeah.
Immediately it's okay.
The 6 refers to the profit.
Profit margin, right? Okay, so what's our problem with adding a problem with a sixth or not a sixth? Adding to the measurements, it would be bittul mekach immediately. That has nothing to do with the six, right? Doesn't have to do with the six. Elamishim tagra. Rather, the concern is because of the merchant. Diana. What's going to happen is the merchant's going to come. He's going to sell. And our measurements are going to be 1/6 more. He thinks he's going to be making a profit of 1/6. Turns out that he's not going to be making a profit at all because the measurements are 1/6 more. As he thinks that it's going to be this amount, it's going to be more than that. Diana, who the Gemara says, Diana who the he's not going to make a profit. Right. No, he's going to measure his grain into our vessels. Our vessels are going to be 1/6 more. He's going to charge us the price of what was the original gallon. Our gallons are 1/6 more. He's going to charge us. He's going to try to make the profit of 1/6, and he's really going to end up making no profit because our things are 1/6 more. This is Diano de He's not going to have a loss. Rav Chalai, but he doesn't need a profit. Zavan v'zabein tagri ikri. Buying and selling is called a merchant. That's an expression for someone that doesn't make any profit. He buys and he sells for the same price. So remember my Chalav Yisrael joke? There was this guy that he used to always ask his Rebbe for a bracha for Parnasa. So the Rebbe would give him a bracha anyway. He was never made any money. Anyway, the guy disappears. A few months later, the Rebbe sees him. He says, "Like, what happened? You used to ask me always." He said, "No, I figured everything out. Everything's good. I got a cow, and I sell the milk. I make money." This is 1 second, but we live in the city. What does the cow eat? He says, "Oh, I buy milk from the store and I serve it to the cow, and the cow gives milk, and then I sell." He says, "How much milk do you buy, and how much milk does it give?" He says, "Well, I buy a gallon, and it gives a gallon." So he tells him this Gemara, "Zavan v'zabein tagrike." How do you make money like that? He says, "No, Rabbi, you don't understand. I buy chalav vacuum, but it gives chalav Yisrael." Okay. Anyway, so you have to make a profit over here. Elam Rav Chizda Shmuel Krash Kach B'Darash. Reason why Shmuel said, in other words, our question now still is, why did Shmuel make a big deal about the sixth if the problem would be even if it's not a sixth? So Amar Rav Chizda Shmuel Krash Kach. Shmuel found the pasuk B'Darash and he learned the pasuk. It says in that pasuk in Yecheskel, it says Vashekel Esrim Geira. At the same place. Yes, the pasuk before. Pasuk says that a shekel is 20 geira. A geira is a ma, it's a small coin. Esrim shkalim, 20 shkalim, and chamisha esrim shkalim, plus 25 shkalim, we're at 45. Asara v'chamisha shekel, plus 15. What's 45 plus 15? 60. Hamana yelachem will be a mana. It's a very strange way of giving you a fractions of a mana. It says 20 plus 25 plus 15. Why did it do it like that? Anyway, whatever the case is, the Gemara then explains. Masan v'arbain hava. How much is a mana? So you have to think like this. Every shekel is 4 dinar. 4 zuz, 4 dinar. So if you have 60 times 4, it's going to be 240. Masan v'arbain hava is 240. So now really a mana is supposed to be 200. There's a mana, you see, the Torah shekel is twice the size of the other shekel. The classic shekel was half of a Torah shekel. Yeah, but in the shekel of the when it says in the Torah the shekel of the desert, that was twice the size of that. So Manashal Kodesh. Okay, so El Shmaminat plus. But we learned from this 3 things. First of all, Shmamina Manashal Kodesh Kafel Haya. So really, a mana really means 100 dinar. So he's supposed to have 200 dinar if you're dealing with the Torah currency. 200 dinar, because it's supposed to be double. Thing is, so in other words, like this, when the Torah says you give half a shekel, if you gave a shekel in the later currency,
I'm
that
up
was
in shir. I davened already.
that was
I'm upstairs. I just want 2 coffee.
Oh, 1 second. Yeah,
Good to see you.
I hear you. Yeah, I hear you getting a coffee. Okay. Let's see. All right, get out of this. Okay, so how do we get to 240? So Shema Mina Mesifin Alamides Vein Mesifin Yesim Mishtus, because you are allowed to add to the measurements, but you can't add more than a 6th. So what would a 6th be of? 1 second. Let me just tell you one more thing. Shema Mina Shtus Milbar. The 6th is counted from outside. Okay, now, if you have 200 dinarim, so you divide them by 5, that would be 40. Now you can add up to 40 more to the 200, which means 240. Right, it takes us back to that the mana is now 6.
Is that how they do this? I thought it was just 60% of 200, just 32.
No, they do it. They divide it by 5 and add an extra one on, so that.
No, I know what you're doing. That's the. I understand that math. That's the Torah math when you pay a 5th.
Yeah.
Right.
They do that when you pay a bit. They do it in almost everything. It's like shlish milbar.
232.
They call it from the shlish from the outside, because after you add it on, then it turns into a 6.
Right. I got it.
not beforehand. It's after you add it, it becomes a 6. Okay.
Did you think very ready?
What does that mean?
Amaravina. Masnisin Nami Dayaka. I'll prove it to you from the Mishnah. Tiktani and about the 6. Because the Mishnah taught, the Taida was brought from 5 saw in the desert, which, I'm sorry, 5 saw Jerusalemite saw, which is really 6 Midbariya saw. Shramina, you see that how did they change it? How did they increase what used to be 6 saw is now 5 saw, and that's an increase, right? Because each saw now holds a 6 more, right? How did they do that? They did that because they were able to add a 6, and that type of 6 is a 6 milbar, because if
It's like
6
above the Chamisha, what we have. The kind of things. No, not when we would say 1/4 ends up really 1/5, 20% more, 25%.
Right. So if
We
you
discussed it when you were out getting coffee.
No,
you mentioned the 5th.
oh, I didn't hear.
Now,
somebody was asking me why wasn't I in clear?
Just like back in the day.
But I sent you a message. Be right back.
Okay.
Change my name.
Okay, so listen. If you have 6, and those 6 turn into the same amount, but now it's 5, that means that you added this. That means that each measurement became 1/6 more, right? But that 6 is a 6 milbar. To increase each measurement from 6. Is that adding a 6? Like if I have 100, let's say, so to add a 6, according to this, would be 20. Now if I have 6 and I turn it into 5, let's say I have 120. And I'm making each one of those 6 now 5. Now it's going to be 24. So it's going to be that's considered a milbar also. That's considered the 6 milbar. Okay, that's the same thing. Okay. Shramina. Very good. We learned it from the Mishnah. We have a new Mishnah now. A little bit easier.
It feels very much like Nida.
We had some complications. Yeah. Okay, Mikula, when you have 40 loaves of bread, we're talking about the carbon taida. That's this parak is called the taida. You have 40 loaves of breads. So the rule was, you would give 1 out of 10 was truma for the kayin. You will take from it 1 from each karban truma for Hashem. So echad, when it says in the pasuk echad, you take 1. Shalayitel paris, that means it has to be a whole one. It can't be a partial one. It says 1, means it needs to be whole. We call karban from each of them. You call karban shabbos. That means that they should all be equal. Shalayitel mi karban al chaveirei. Means you can't take 2 from one and say that should cover the other type. Okay. Another source is the kayan hazerik isdam shlam layiyah. It goes to the kayan that sprinkled the blood of the shlamim. So that he gets that 1 out of 4, 1 out of 40, right? The 4 out of 40, and the rest goes to the owner. It gets eaten. He has to invite a lot of friends to get rid of it because he only has one night. Big for bringing. That's right. Taner Rabbanan was taught in the Brisa. Vikru mimeno. Yeah. No, but there was a prohibition of nicer. Now you're not supposed to leave it over. And now the way to resolve the nicer was that you burnt it, but you weren't supposed to leave it over. There was a negative prohibition. Do not leave it over.
Not everyone has friends.
You have to make friends. When you have a party, you have friends. All of a sudden, they'll
When you
appear.
have sushi,
Yeah, the reason why it was like this was because they were thanking Hashem for a miracle that happened. So you would spread it out. You have to invite a lot of people. It's like getting rid of the beer after a Shalom Zacher when it's Erev Pesach.
Remember
I need a lot of friends.
This is not, it's almost impossible. You sell it. Yeah, and beer stand. Right. Then Rabbanan, we started in a brayse meno when it says you should take from it mena mechuber. It means they should all be in one vessel. Yeah, you have to put them all together when you're going to separate. That's like taking challah; they'll have to be in the same bowl. If it's not in the same bowl, at least touching. Echad, you take one shleitel paris. That means it can't be broken. Mikol carbon from each of the four types. You call carbon shavish shleitel carbon al chaver. You can't take one on the other one. Okay. Truma la Hashem. Truma in yedeh mikamehi. I don't know how much it's supposed to be, because it says harini done. So I'm going to judge it like this. This is how I'll figure it out. Nemar kan truma, but nemar truma smaiser truma. It says you have to take a portion. How much was the portion? It says I'm going to learn it from somewhere else. It says in one place truma. It says bayas truma. So malahalan, just like by the other place when it says truma, I was talking about truma smaiser. Trumas Meiser is another word for Meiser, Mina Meiser. You give the Meiser to the Levi, 1/10. And the Levi takes Meiser and gives it to the Kayan. Takes 1/10 of a tenth. But whatever the case is, that's called Meiser. Truma from the Meiser. What goes to the Kayan is called the Truma. So it says Truma there, and we know it's 1/10. So also here it says Truma, Malahalan, Echad Me'asara, Afkan, Echad Me'asara. So to over here, it's going to be 1 out of 10. 1 out of 10 is going to go to Kohen.
You can take 5 and 5, like you can take a 10 without breaking them. It's easy when you have 10 notes.
No. That was Korban Mincha. You had 5 options of what type of mincha you wanted to bring. You could bring the flour one, you could bring the flat pan, this pan, this, and you could do the loaves and this. And there's one opinion that says the loaves and the cracker, the wafers, you could do 5 from 5. It didn't have to be 10. It's called mafetana, the baked in the oven one. Here, we're talking about the Korban Taida. It's not a donation mincha. By the Korban Taida, you didn't have that option of 5 and 5. The Reb Shimon wasn't talking about this. Here you have very clear what you're supposed to bring. 10 of chametz, 10 loaves of matzah, 10 rikikin of matzah, and then the boiled one. You didn't have that option of the, okay. So we seem to figure it out. We seem to figure out how to learn that it's going to be 1/10 is going to go to the Kohen, but maybe not. Nemar kan, maybe go take a different path. Nemar kan truma, nemar bibikurim truma. It says over here truma. It says by bikurim the word truma. Mala halan ein lashir. Just like by bikurim there was no measurement. Afkan ein lashir. Maybe you just give whatever a small portion to the Kohen. It doesn't have to be a 10th. The Gemara says, well, near lemi daima. Let's see what's more comparable to. We're talking about a Korban Taida. We have 2 options. We can compare it to Meiser, Trumas Meiser. We can compare it to Bikurim. So, Don in Truma, Shein Achret Truma. We would like to learn it from a Truma that doesn't have another Truma afterwards. Right? But by Bikurim, there's a Truma that happens afterwards. Because after you take Truma, then you have all the other things that you have to do. You have to do all the Trumas Meiser. Bikurim was the first thing that you brought. Here, this is the last thing that you're bringing, that you're offering. So it doesn't compare to Bikurim. Like Kalchal there, so maybe not. Done in Truma Nechelis Makam Kadesh. Maybe we actually should learn from Bikurim, because Bikurim had to be eaten in Yerushalayim, and the Korban Taida had to be eaten in Yerushalayim. Don't compare it to Chumas Meiser. That was eaten anywhere. So we should learn it from Bikurim, which would leave us with no measurement. The Gemara says, Talmud Laimar Mimenu. It says you bring from it, Truma LaHashem. Exhibit Trumas Meiser Mimenu Truma. By Trumas Meiser, it also says the word Mimenu Truma. So L'Gzer Shava, so the extra word Mimenu is what tells us that it has to be comparable to Trumas Meiser. Okay. Lamadnu L'Truma Sheyachad Mi'asara. We figured it out. Truma is 1 out of 10. That we're talking about the Truma from the carbon Taida. Truma in general is Trei Mimea. Remember that? Trei Mimea is 2%, 2 out of 100. This is not the Truma. This is a Truma that's taken from the carbon Taida. Right over there was approximate. Right. And you weren't supposed to use the measuring. You're supposed to estimate. But I don't know how big each loaf is. Already done, so I'm going to figure it out like this. It says over here lechem, bread. It says that's by the carbon type. It says by the shtei lechem. Guess what? It says lechem. It says bread over there. Malahalan, he started lachala. Just like over there, every challah, every loaf, 2 loaves. Each one was an isarin. In other words, the shtei lechem was 2 isarin, 2/10. Right? I could say 1/5, but each one was 1/10. Right? So a tenth of an ephah, which means an isarin. So 2 afkan isarin lachala. Also over here was going to be an entire ephah. Each loaf was going to be an isarin, and I had 10 loaves. It would be. I know how big each challah is, and then I already learned how much you have to give to the kohen. Give 1. So we figured it out that it's going to be an isarin per challah. So maybe you have to take a different approach. It says over here the word bread, lechem, by the carbon taida. It says by the lechem apanim. Guess what? It says lechem, by the lechem apanim, by the showbread. It's just like over there, it's 2 isara per lechem, by the lechem apanim was larger. Every loaf by the lechem apanim was 2 isara. 1/5 of an ephah. 12 of them. How much would that be? No, I had 1/5 of an ephah, and then I needed 12 of those. So it would be. Doesn't work, right? How much was all of it together was? Oh, it was 24 Yisraelis for the lechem. Means 2 and a fifth, 2 and 2/5, right? 24. Okay. Whatever the case is, by the lechem apanim, each loaf is larger, right? Each loaf is 2 isarim. It's double the size. Malan shnei yisraelim, afkan shnei yisraelim. Maybe over here the loaves have to be 2 isarim. So it says ner lemidaim. Let's see what we compare it to. Done mincha b'chametz mazavach. We're going to compare a mincha that you have chametz together with a carbon. The mincha b'chametz mazavach. We're going to compare it to another mincha that has chametz with the carbon. What's that? The carbon taida has chametz together with the carbon. The shtei alechem is chametz together with the carbon. The 2 kvasim, the 2 lambs. Don't compare it to the lechem apanim. First of all, that wasn't chametz, and that didn't even come with the carbon. So the comparison is off. So we're back to comparing it to that you're going to get to the shtei alechem, which was the isarin per challah. So maybe we got it all wrong. We should compare it to the taida, which the grain could have come from Eretz Yisrael. It doesn't matter. Could have come from Chutz La'aretz. Could come from the new grain. Could come from the old grain. How was it brought from the new grain? New grain is also. Guess what it means is that because it wasn't brought on the Mizbeach, you didn't do a kmitza on the lachmi taida. So therefore, once the Eimer was brought, you could already use the new grain for the carbon taida, as opposed to the shtei alechem, which it needed to be because the shtei lechem was brought on the mizbeach, it needed to be from the old grain. So that was the first of the. That needs to be from the. Oh, over here it means the new grain. It means from the brand this year's crop, and from Eretz Yisrael. Talmud Leimar, maybe we should learn from the shtei lechem. Talmud Leimar, mishvei to be a lechem tenufa shtayim. Shein Talmud Leimar. It says over there, mishvei taviyu. You should bring from your taviyu. You all should bring. Shein Talmud Leimar taviyu. It didn't have to say taviyu that you all should bring. Ma Talmud Leimar taviyu. Why is it saying taviyu? This teaches us shekol mashat maybe makam acher hariyo kazeh. That when you're going to bring from somewhere else, it's going to be similar to this. So I guess the Gemara is learning that Taviyu is coming to teach me that not just this one is brought, but also another one is brought the same way. Didn't have to say the word Taviyu. That whenever you bring another sacrifice, another offering, which is similar to this one, which is also going to be chametz, it should be the same measurement, which is an isarim. Okay, the Gemara says, "Mala halan isarim l'chala, afkan isarim l'chala." Imala halan shnei yisreinos, afkan shnei yisreinos. If you're going to compare it to the shtei alechem, I know each one of the two was going to be one isarim. But over there, you had a max. The max was 2 Yisraelis. It was shtei alechem. Maybe over here also you should have a max. You should only bring 2 loaves. It says, Talmud Leimar tiyena. It says by the shtei alechem, it shall be. Now that it shall be is coming to exclude that it shall be 2 loaves, but other things are not going to be 2 loaves. Lamadnu asara lechametz. So far, what we're holding now is that the Karban Taida was divided by. You had 40 loaves. 10 of them were chametz. 30 of them were matzah. The 10 that were chametz were made from an ephah, which that ephah is divided into 10 parts, called Yisreinos and Yisarin. Now, and then we also learned that there were 10 loaves in this, and each loaf was 1 Yisarin. And we learned that from the Shtei Alechem that it was an Yisarin. We learned that one of those loaves was supposed to go to the Kayan. That we learned from Shumas Meiser, that one of those loaves goes to the Kayan. Now, let's go over to the chametz ones. Lamadno asara lecham. Let's go over to the matzah ones. We just did the chametz. Asara lematzah minayin. How do we know that when it comes to the matzah, you also need to have 10 loaves per type? There's 3 types, and each one of those needs to have 10 loaves, right? Then we're asking from the Torah. We're before the Mishnah, right? Did it tell us in the Mishnah, the source? No. So we're looking for the source. Source. Yeah. What's the source for a Mishnah? Would be a pasuk. We have to go back to the pasuk. Right? Okay. So it goes like this. Talmud Leimar. So it says al chales lechem chametz on. It says by the Karban Taida. Together with chales lechem chametz, he should bring his sacrifice. Neged chametz have matzah. Corresponding to the chametz, he's supposed to bring matzah. Nimtzu esrim isreinos. Comes out that you have 20 isreinos, 20 tenths. Lachmi taida. Asar lachametz v'asar lamatzah. It's going to be 10 isarin for the matzah. Ayachal asar shebematzah lo yiyu kulam ela mimenachan. Maybe you should only make one type. The Gemara says, "Talmud Leimar mal taida yakivenu v'kval zevach atei the chalas matzah bluz Hashem and rekika matzah b'shuch Hashem zelos mervekes." You have 3 types in the matzah. You have chales matzahs, you have rekike matzahs, and then you have the boiled flour. So what's going to happen? Nimtzu, in these 10 esreinos, you're going to have Shleisha Esrainim Ushlish L'Kol Minamin. 3 Isarin and a third is going to be for each type. Because you have 10 in total. 3 and you have 3 types. So 3 and a third for each type. And then each type has to have 10 loaves. So each you have 3 and a third Isarin. So each Isarin is going to have 3 loaves. That's going to give you, for the 3 Isarin will give you 9. And the third is going to give you the 10th. Right? Nimtzu lachmi taydar, but comes out that the lachmi taydar is 40 loaves. You take out 4, give them to the kayan, the rest is eaten by the owner. Amar Mar. Let's try to get to the Mishnah. That makes sense. We'll try to get to the Mishnah.
You lost me. 5 miles.
It says that you take them, but they all have to be close together. When you separate it for the kain al miata, the ksiv eskol chelba yar mimeno. It says also by the fat. What do you mean? You have to take it from mimeno means that it has to be all connected. When you're cutting the animal up, it's not you have to separate the fat from the animal. It has to be all the whole animal has to be there. Gemara says you actually don't cut apart the animal until you actually remove the animal is going to get cut up into pieces, but you don't do that until you move the innards to put on the altar. Amar Mar was before in the Brisa, we learned from Truma, and we learned from Truma that you have to take a tenth, right? You have to take that 1/10 goes to the Kayan. Gemara says, remember the battle that went to Midian, and it was divided amongst the people that went to battle and the people that stayed back to watch the things, and there was the spoils of war. It says over there Truma. One of the Trumas that was there was 1 out of 50. The Gemara says, why is it 1 out of 10? Over there it says Truma, it's 1 out of 50. It says doesn't Truma nehegas l'dars, but Truma nehegas l'dars. We would like to use the term Truma from something that's still relevant, not from something that was just has a historical relevance. That doesn't apply to the future generation. That was just that one battle. What about chala? Over there it says that you take 1/24. Tana de Rabbi Shmuel, Tana davar nemer by mimeno truma l'Hashem, midavar shnemer mimeno truma l'Hashem. By chala, lafuki trumas chala delay nemer mimeno truma l'Hashem. It doesn't say the word mimeno truma l'Hashem. Okay. Boy Rava. Rava has some questions over here. Trumas lachmi taida. We know the halacha by truma is that someone eats truma, regular truma, is a death penalty from heaven. Quite strict. So, what about trumas lachmi taida?
Someone that's not supposed to eat truma.
Someone that's not supposed to. Yeah, someone that's not supposed to.
Yeah, you can relax.
Trumas lachmi taida chayavan ala misa chaymesh ein chayavan ala misa v'chaymesh. Do you have the same severe, strict punishment? You have to pay the extra fifth. Is there a punishment of misa from heaven if someone that eats it that it wasn't supposed to? The key in this goes to trumas meiser, dummy. It's compared to trumas meiser, so it should be just like trumas meiser. By Dilma, or perhaps it says that by trumas meiser, mesu boy kiyechalu will die from it because he profaned it. That's only over there. It says boy, a chamishi say, and it also says chamishi say it's fit. So that's a exclusion that it's only by the trumas meiser, not by us. Midamas ayena midamas. What about if it gets mixed in to other grains or other breads? Will it make it timua? Timua means a mixture where the entire thing has to be sold to a kayan. Does that happen as well, or do we say it just becomes batal? Okay, Amar Mar. So the Gemara leaves that as a teku. Amar Mar. What we went before is Tamalay Tiana. Tiana taught me that the shtei alechem is going to be 2 loaves, 2 isarim, but the taida is going to be 10 loaves. My Talmud, what did you learn from the Tiana? Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avimi Tiana ksiv. It says Tiana. That means that this extra yud in the Tiana is going to tell me that the lachmi taida is going to have 10. How do you know 10 isarin. Maybe it's 10 kfizi. Kfizi is like a small measurement of half a cup. Marava be Srenis Tiberakasav. No, we weren't talking about that. We're talking about isarin. Says so. It's going to be when I have the extra yud in tiyana. Tells me that it's going to be 10 isarin. Lamad Masar Lachametz Asar Lamatz Minayin. How do we know that there's going to be? This is a quote from the Brisa. How do we know that there's going to be 10 of matzah? 10 isarin for matzah. Al chalas lachem chametz k'neged chametz every matzah. The same size that you bring chametz, that's how much you're going to bring the matzah. You have to go back. How did we get that there were 10 for chametz? We learned that from the shtei lechem. Said lechem. Said the word lechem, and how do we now learn from that over to the matzah how much it's supposed to be? It says himenu v'davar acharu. Chol himenu v'davar achar lo yihavi hekesh. Let me see what your commentary. The hekesh that equates them to the shtei alechem. The measure, it says, the measure of chametz taida breads are not derived entirely through a hekesh, but it's derived partly from its own verse and partly from context. Anything that's derived partly from its own and partly from another context is not regarded as derived through a hekesh. Therefore, we can learn to extend this over to the matzah of the taida. Very nice. The Gemara says, "Okay, this fits with according to the opinion that says that you can learn one from the other when they support from somewhere else." Almanda Amar Havi Hekesh Ma'iklam. What are you going to do? It says Taviyu Ribuyahu. When it said before by the Shtei Lechem, it says Taviyu. That's coming to include that besides for the matzah, besides for the taida, besides for the chametz, it's also going to be for the matzah. That's an extra inclusion. Okay, let's leave it over here. By the Mishnah. So tomorrow we can learn at 7:30, except we'll be a little late because of the siyum. And then, we'll be a little early because we don't see Mizmal Saida. So that's the time we'll save, and then the siyum.
Okay, thank you.
10 seconds.
Okay.
Bye.
But anyway, not changing the time. It's called 7:30. It'll be like 7:40.
I sent out
Have a good day.
I sent out